Democratic State Representative and Chairman of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus of Texas, Ramon Romero Jr. of Fort Worth. Thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Always glad to be with you, Jack.
Good to see you. Wanted to ask you about Republican Congressman Brandon Gill of Flower Mound's new bill in Congress that essentially cracks down on birthright citizenship and birth tourism by doing two things. First, it would classify people who enter the U.S. illegally and birth tourists as, quote, invaders, and then as such, not make them eligible for birthright citizenship. Your reaction?
I think that, thank you, Jack, for the question. First of all, I just think that this is just another example of our elected officials being unwilling to take a loss, and they're taking their orders directly from the top. President Trump has been completely unhappy with the fact that the Supreme Court on June 30th issued the decision to say the birthright citizenship is the law of the land. The 14th Amendment continues as the law of the land. And then we see our governor respond. Even prior to this bill, Governor Abbott responded immediately. Less than a month, he responded to that need. And yet people of Texas are so frustrated by data centers and so on. But yet this is where his focus is. And Gill is just another one of those elected officials that's not responded to the real needs of people. The real needs of people are, we have an affordability problem, Jack, and getting rid of those working class folks, telling them that this is not the place to raise your family, but this is a place where we'll give you a job. Those things just don't add up. And I think Texans are frustrated by it. They know it. They're tired of getting the wool pulled over their heads. This is a dead end, but they're going to lose again, in my opinion. I believe that even senators and congressmen throughout our country understand that we're still a nation of immigrants, and I think that'll be proven over time.
I mean, politically speaking, do you think declaring people who cross the border and birth tourists as invaders will sell?
I don't think so. I mean, look at me. Do I look like an invader? I was born to a parent in 1973 who, I say proudly, my mother came across the border following her husband that was a bracero, a farm worker in California, with two babies in hand. And I was born in 1973, prior to being naturalized by President Ronald Reagan. And I have since then ran a business for 32 years and become a state representative. And unfortunately, Congressman Gill doesn't understand the value of people like me, but I think normal Americans that care about unity, and certainly Texans, we just want people with grit. And I know I'm someone with grit, and I think most of the immigrant class that's here to work is as well. So I think that they're tired of it. They're sick and tired of it. They want real issues, instead of making our healthcare workers investigate a mother while she's at birth. Even in emergency situations, they would rather have our healthcare workers investigating whether somebody is here by way of birthright tourism rather than serving that mother. It's just an unfortunate, sad reality of the men that are elected. These bills weren't filed by women because they understand what pregnancy is like.
And so let me ask you just about, and I do want to get to Governor Abbott's executive order in a minute, but just on the point, when talking to Congressman Gill, he said that the problem is that people lie on their immigration forms, their temporary visa applications, so that they can come here specifically to give birth. What do you say to that?
I have a hard time believing that that is a problem worth investigating and challenging all of our state workers and our federal workers with that sort of investigation process. If he really wants to deal with that problem, then he should go to the president and say, let's do comprehensive immigration reform. Let's deal with those that have their children in that situation that you described. And I think that could be done under a comprehensive immigration reform bill. Unfortunately, that's not the priority. They'd rather spend $170 billion of the American taxpayers' hard-earned money on CBP and ICE and terrorizing communities. This is another deterrent, is what it is, Jack, in saying you're not welcome to have your children here. You're not welcome to bring your children here. Matter of fact, if you're a pregnant woman, you might not even want to come to the United States until you're you've already had that child somewhere else. This country is off limits to you if you're pregnant. I don't think they're thinking of the real repercussions. I mean, I think it's just a lost cause but they know that they need to distract the voter of Texas right now, and that's just distract the voter of the United States. Everyone is really upset at the current administration, at the economy, and they're doing anything they can to distract from everyone's reality. But when I go fuel up, you're not distracting me. And I think that's true for most Texans, most Americans right now.
And one other question on what did you say before when you meant the repercussions? They're not seeing what their repercussions could be. What did you mean? What do you think?
Well, if we continue down this path of running off the workforce that we have in this community, that sadly, a very large part, especially here in Texas, is a community that's been here for decades that has had no pathway to legal citizenship, residency, working permit, any way to that. They can't collect a check. And now we're saying, by all means, we don't want you here. And when that workforce leaves and they go to other states or they go back to their other countries, that may sound like a good idea. Some far right radical that doesn't care about what it takes to run a business. But for those of us entrepreneurs in Texas, for those of us business owners that need a workforce, all that means is everything just gets more and more and more expensive. We've seen the growth of our budgets on a federal side, increasing debt on a federal side, no real working class people running our government. And that's what I mean by the repercussions. I can see as a business owner when my labor costs go up, I directly pass that on to the consumer if I want to stay in business. Everywhere you look right now, things have become more and more expensive. Even going back to Governor Abbott's point, the executive order, removing healthcare workers, Department of Health and Human Services workers, the Texas Medical Board, the Medical Examiners Board, all of these folks, and giving them this new task when there's so much left to do to keep people safe when it comes to healthcare. That increased cost. We can't continue to grow this administrative cost and not just do the actual work.
And I know, as you were just criticizing the governor's executive order, how concerned are you about this issue playing out in the next legislative session when that begins in January?
Well, personally, I don't believe Governor Abbott is going to be the governor next session. I think Governor Abbott has made so many mistakes that the rooster has come home to rooster, however that saying is. I mean, it is time. People are now calling for term limits like never before. They understand the corruption that happens in Governor Abbott's office because he's just been there too long, and he's not taking orders for Texans. He's taking orders from President Trump. Look, let me just look, Jack. Not even a month after the Supreme Court decision, he's already following an executive order. And as I said earlier, there are people in rural Texas that are so frustrated that Governor Abbott is not responding immediately by calling a special session as he did through redistricting, or even making an executive order and making simple changes to protect some of those folks in rural Texas, even something simple. So nothing, not a crumb for those people. And so I think Governor Abbott has got his hands full with Gina Hinojolsa's race. I think the entire state of Texas is looking at James Talarico and saying, maybe it is time for a change, and maybe we can get some real focus on just getting back to business. I said it again. I want to see somebody with some Texas grit. I want to see someone that knows what it's like to go mend fences and go to a job site and work next to somebody. And at the end of the day, say, hey, man, thank you. I'm done. Let's go home. And that's how brotherhood and sisterhood is created. And Governor Abbott, unfortunately, has just been in office for far too long, and he doesn't understand the average need of Texans.
Well, you brought up data centers, and so I'm wondering, I mean, the governor has taken action, the PUC, Public Utility Commission of Texas, and ERCOT have taken action based off of Governor Abbott's direction, where data centers are not going to be able to come into Texas and use more water, as far, use up all the water resources in the community. They're not going to be able to come here expecting that they're going to be able to use the power off the grid. They got to bring their own. They got to spend their own money providing their own electricity. What more do you want? Why do you think that's not good enough?
I think if you look at this week's Senate hearing and our prior natural resources hearing, is the people of Texas just want to be heard. They want to hear their actual concerns. Those in counties want to see if there's ways that they can have more regulatory control to determine how their county is growing. I believe that there are data centers that are absolutely doing things the correct way, and I think that there are other data centers that are going to do things the way some businesses do, which is the cheapest possible. So we have good actors and bad actors. The reality is Governor Abbott has had a long time in welcoming all of these types of businesses to Texas, and he could have created the framework prior to them creating it on their own, which is just through low regulation. We can have regulation that works to support business and also support the people of Texas. And again, I don't think that this too little, too late thing that he's doing now, as an example, they're calling for a special session. Why not put that in statute if those changes need to be through statute? Why is it that he's burdening his agencies and giving them a lot of gray area versus giving them black and white? And I think that's what Texans really want. They want black and white. They want it in statute. They want it written into the law so that they can feel safe about what tomorrow looks like if they're in rural Texas, or if you're in an urban area and you don't want them right up against your neighborhood.
And I think Republicans want to pass legislation as well. The crux comes, do you call a special session now or do you wait for January? And you're saying do it now.
Well, I think that even Sid Miller, our current agricultural commissioner, is saying, here's Governor Abbott's opportunity as governor. He has the right to make this call right now, and he hasn't done it. And I think that the people of Texas are paying attention. Rural Texas are paying attention. They can go on and say, we need to turn out the vote. I think Republicans in rural Texas are saying, I'm going to sit this one out because they're not responding to me the same way that they responded to any call that comes from DC. We know that when President Trump called for redistricting, Governor Abbott immediately called a special session. He felt that was more important than the needs of 30 million Texans right now. And look, and I'll say it again, data centers some are doing it right and some are not doing it right. Some are doing it the cheapest way, and some are doing it the way that they can remain and be a trusted partner in Texans. And if more people hear it, they are hearing from those data centers, but they also need to hear from their people and saying, maybe just not in this situation. And that doesn't mean only the not in my backyard. But this is Texas. We will figure it out. But we should figure it out legislatively and put it into statute. And I think even the data centers will be happy to know that they have a predictable framework.
Guardrails.
Guardrails. That's correct. Safe and fair.
And last question, I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the Senate campaign and the race between James Tallarico and Ken Paxton, and we know that Tallarico is running towards the middle, as most candidates do during these campaigns. I'm wondering, how concerned are you that his past statements, which have been on video, have been played on social media by Republicans, will interfere with that and stand in the way of his campaign? Even Tallarico has admitted some of his past statements were cringeworthy.
Well, I think that there's very rarely that you'll have anybody that's been in office for dozen years or 10 years and hasn't had some statement that he or she has made that's cringeworthy. But I think the vast majority of Texans see the kind of quality human being that James Tallarico is, that he's a man of character, he's a man of honor, he's a man of God. He is someone that believes, as a Democrat, that we have for far too long allowed the Republican Party to be the only folks to talk about God in a way that's compassionate and understanding. And he talks about his relationship with God. And I think that's something that more Democrats can do and should do. I think he's doing it very well, and he's relating to people in all parts of Texas, including that rural Texas that we've described. He's appealing and he's doing a really good job of going out to reach out to African American voters and Latino voters in South Texas and beyond. Have realized that that we got sold a bill of goods. And if you look at the turnout in South Texas, I mean, it looks like it's going to be close to an 80% Democratic support from Hispanic voters. If that happens, if frustrated rural voters, because of what's happening with data centers, don't turn out the way they have, and if independents turn out because they're frustrated with national politics, I think Ken Paxton can pack his bags and go back to wherever it is that he moves and he lives, whether that's somewhere around the country. It's certainly not in Collin County, but I think it's going to be a really good time in November for James Tallarico and for the people of Texas.
All right, we will leave it there. Democratic State Representative and Chairman of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus of Texas, Ramon Romero Jr. of Fort Worth. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack.